I'm getting the camel's nose under the tent here because I'm not a customer yet.
Oh,
correct. Yes.
Or you're using the assumptive close that based on this call and Brian's epiphany that I've got it. I can't wait.
we're forecasting you already. You're part of the blood commit.
Man, look at all these note takers.
Everybody likes notes.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, Ben, if you can help let people in, appreciate it.
Yep.
Do we want all the note takers?
Probably.
I mean, I don't have a big deal with it for now. We can put that into the SOPs later if we want to change it.
All right.
Martin, how you doing?
Hey, Justin. All good. How's everyone doing?
Morning.
This is morning time for you.
Doing well. Wasn't sure if you were going to join today. Your schedule opened up.
Yeah. It's late Friday afternoon, and salespeople, Friday afternoons are a bit allergic, but
Got to meet client meetings.
yeah, client meetings.
Keep giving it a couple minutes here just to let folks filter in. Good to see everyone. Happy Friday. I need to know, you guys can shout it out or put it in the chat, who you're picking for the Masters this weekend, based off, I guess, what's going on so far, but it'd be good to hear what people are thinking out there. I think we got day 2 starting this morning, so.
Is Tiger still in it? No?
He's hurt. He's hurt.
He didn't make it?
No.
I always root for Tiger if he's in it.
He's definitely a good one to cheer for, but I think he's had some pretty major setbacks with the back and everything the last few years. So, but you never know. I think it was 8 or 9 years ago he came back and won it, which was a pretty awesome experience. So yeah, we'll see if that happens again. Good morning,
Thanks for
everyone.
reminding me, Dustin. I forgot they were even playing.
I figured there might be some people that have it going on in the background, but we'll see if there's any big golfers around here.
I was going to say Max Homa or Freddie Couples, or that's it, or Bryce DeChambeau.
Yeah, I think Justin Rose is winning right now. Or
He's got a pretty good lead. He's got a pretty big lead.
Yeah,
Wow.
so but I think he's done that 5 times. He has the most first round leads out of anyone ever, but I don't think he's ever won it. So not to jinx him here, but we'll see how that shakes out. But we'll go ahead and get going. Looks like we're 2 or 3 minutes in. Got a pretty good crowd hopping on. I'm sure people will filter in as we start. So excited to see everyone today and looking forward to it. If you don't mind putting in the chat just what your name is, company, and maybe the industry, that would be great, just so we can kind of see what all folks we have on today. And for those of you who have not been on these before, these are our monthly revenue performance webinars at Brevity. And we really want to encourage engagement, an open learning forum from your peers. So we're going to be talking, we're going to do a role play. We have a topic for today, but it's meant to be interactive and not just us talking the whole time. Should be about 45 minutes. And it's always around topics that sales teams and reps are struggling with, and some ideas to improve and even prevent that from happening in the future. So, and then we do a live role play at the beginning. So today I'm not going to be doing it. Ben's going to come in and do a professional appearance there. He probably will do a much better job than me, and excited to have that. And then, the topic for today, before we go into the role play, because that's usually the most fun part, is winning the business sale to prevent no decision. And what we mean by that is that as salespeople, you get really comfortable talking about the product, talking about the features, the benefits, going with the flow, but sometimes it's hard to push back, especially on the business side of the sale. And then the other thing that we've been learning is that a lot of folks don't even necessarily know the difference sometimes between the technical and the business sale. And depending on what your sale is, if it's more complex, there's going to be variances there, but a lot of times we don't really know the difference between the business and the technical sale. So that's something we're going to touch on as well. So the takeaways that you're going to get, so make sure to stay the entire time, is what are some really tough questions that you can ask as sort of an acid test to see where you're at in the deal and if it's a real deal. Embracing the tough conversations. I think a lot of salespeople have a little bit of imposter syndrome and a lack of confidence. So how do you embrace some of those tough conversations? And then focusing on deals that are more likely to succeed. If you can figure out the business sales side of it, it's going to help you focus on deals likely to succeed, which means the pipeline is going to be more accurate and less pain at the end of the quarter and throughout the year. So before we hand it off to Ben, Brian Burns is on with us today, who most of you, I'm sure, know. He's really well known in the sales world. We've learned a ton from him, wisdom over the years. He has a top 5 podcast called The Brutal Truth About Sales. Brian, before Ben goes and does the role play, and I'll tee that up, do you want to shed some light on just maybe the technical versus the business sale and how people maybe don't understand the difference sometimes and where they fall into some of those traps I mentioned?
Yeah, and this is something that's very different about B2B than B2C. And B2B, if you're talking to the user buyer and you ask who's the decision maker, what do they always say? I am, right? They may be the product decision maker, but they have zero budget authority. And no decision typically happens because the sales rep thinks the user buyer is the sole decision maker. They send the quote and then they just check in to death. And now you have the problem of the salesperson doesn't understand how companies buy and the user doesn't understand how to get it done. So this is what's very unique about the complex sale. So instead of, asking about budget and stuff, I recommend that reps ask, who else cares about this? What does leadership know about this problem? Are they aware of it? Have they developed an opinion? Because a lot of times we hear from clients 6-9 months before they're ready. And it's usually what I call 3 times the charm. It takes 3 months or 3 tries with the economic buyer before they buy in. The first time they hear about it, it's a surprise. I didn't even know it was an issue. And now you want me to spend money. Second time is, okay, it's an issue. Why'd you pick them? You don't know? Well, go tell me why. Then the third time they do it. So if reps aren't really digging into where is the deal as far as it getting economic approval, economic buy-in, not just being a problem for that user.
Thanks, Brian. And we're going to have Ben go ahead and do a role play. I'll tee up Ben a little bit before you get into it. He's maybe a couple calls in, not really sure if he's won the technical sale or where he's at on the business side of it. And then quite frankly, if it's, something he should continue to pursue. So he's going to do a role play in that type of environment. Should be 4 minutes or less. Ben, go ahead and provide any other context and then, introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, nice to meet you all. Ben Crago, account executive here. So I manage the new business or the net new accounts. But yeah, I'll share my screen and we can get going.
And make sure to mute your mics if you don't mind while he's going, just so we don't have any background noise, and that will help. Help.
All right. You guys see it all right? Assume yes.
3, 2, 1. Start speaking.
Carlos, great to see you again. How was the first quarter for you guys?
Great to see you too. The first quarter was quite productive for us with solid growth and some exciting new partnerships. How about you? How has business been on your end?
Excellent. I love it. I know. I feel like I always see Harness on my LinkedIn feed at a new conference or some exciting announcement. So it's good to see you guys are crushing it. I was good on our end too. We exceeded target, but back to square one or square zero for the second quarter.
That's fantastic to hear you exceeded your target. The start of a new quarter is always a great time for fresh opportunities. How are you looking to tackle this new quarter?
Grind it out, baby. But I think it's one of those things we do at Brevity: work smarter, not harder. So, but besides the point, I kind of wanted to talk to you today about what the next steps should be. I feel like we've done a good job identifying that this AI training is going to be a top initiative for you guys in 2025. We've got the technical sale with yourself. So you've gone through a role play. Your sales directors have done a role play, and we confirmed that it will drive impact because we can make them relevant to your sale. And then the next piece of what we started to do is build out the cost justification. So making sure that we outline what are the problems we're solving for Harness, what's the cost of not doing anything, but also what's the ROI going to be for Brevity. So at this point, really the next step to keep our momentum going is going to be meeting with your CEO, because I know you said he was the other person that is ultimately going to need to give us approval. Now, have you socialized this with him yet?
We've had some high-level discussions, but I'll need more time to align everything with our overall strategy, especially with how the economy is shaping up. I'm curious, how do you see this fitting into the bigger picture for us without diving too much into immediate execution?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'll get to that. But what was the CEO's reaction when you brought this up?
My CEO found the idea of AI training intriguing, but he's cautious about making any big commitments amidst the current economic climate. We're taking a deliberate approach and weighing all our options right now.
Understood. Yeah, definitely unprecedented times right now. Now, besides that, like what reservations or what questions did they bring up? Because I'm asking because I think what you and I can start doing is incorporating his feedback into our business case.
One of the main concerns is the evolving tariff situation and how that might impact our operations and expenses. It's a bit of a tricky landscape, so we're trying to be cautious before making large commitments. Do you have any strategies on how to mitigate such risks?
Not on the tariffs, because that's all new to me and I think everybody. But what I would say to that, because this has come up with a few other customers, is that we still need to go through the legal review. We still need to go through the security review, and that will take typically 3 to 6 weeks, depending on how your organization goes about it. So I'm thinking by the time we get through that, a lot of this tariff stuff may have blown over. So that's kind of what my thought process is there. I don't want to have it stop the progress we're making. So what I would say is, why don't we start putting the business case together that also starts talking about implementation and best practices for driving adoption? Because in my experience, that's going to be a big question that comes up from the CEO, because you can buy into the logic of Brevity or a lot of softwares, but then adopting it to actually drive the return and impact is another thing. And I think that's something that he's probably going to question. In your experience working with him, though, in similar projects, but tariffs aside, what else does he typically like to see in a business case?
He's really interested in seeing a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis, especially in terms of long-term ROI and user adoption rates. On that note, it would be helpful for us to receive a detailed proposal or quote to better assess the financial side. How quickly could you provide that?
We can definitely put something together for the implementation. My only concern with the quotes, and I'm happy to put ballpark quotes together for you. That's not it. Is that if we send a quote to your CEO who has yet to be involved with our conversations, they're usually just going to look at this as a cost. And if it's just a cost, that means you're spending money, but they don't understand what you're going to get in return. So I can put that together, but my only ask would be that once you and I are aligned on the quote, that we do secure a meeting with your CEO so we can walk them through the quote, but also the business case, how we're going to drive adoption and how we're going to drive impact.
I understand your concern, and I'd be open to coordinating a meeting after we have more clarity from the quote. The numbers will help me build internal support and ensure the CEO is prepared for a more fruitful conversation. Could you send the ballpark figures and then we can arrange a meeting following that?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'll start working on that, and I can send over a draft maybe this afternoon, but let's you and I get together to make sure we're aligned on it before sharing it with your CEO. So I'll send out an invite for same time on Friday, and you and I can get aligned on the business case and the quotations first, and then from there we'll set up meetings with your executives.
Great. Looking forward to seeing the draft. Let's touch base on Friday to discuss it further and ensure everything aligns well before taking the next steps. Thanks for your responsiveness.
Moment of truth.
Wow.
Whoa.
I don't know if I've ever got that high.
So Ben rises up during pressure when the
That's
lights
why
are
you
shining brighter.
volunteered.
You know what? I told the guys in the background, boost my scores for the webinar.
It was gamed.
No, nice shot, man. I'll open up to the audience. What stood out from the role play? Did anything stand out? There's some real life scenarios there, economy, tariffs, anything stand out? I'll call someone's name if I have to, so let's get some people talking.
Hey, Dustin, and great job, Ben. I like the way that you stuck with it. Great response on the tariff question, by the way. Like, no, thank you. But at one point in time, you got the I ran out of time score on the side of it, and it was really great to hear how you came back around, but also Brevity came back around with you too. So great stuff.
Thanks, Craig. Appreciate that. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, guys. Good job, Ben. The tariff thing is always going to be thrown in there as a banana peel. I don't care what you're talking about. That's just something that is obscure that a lot of buyers are just going to throw in there and blame it on and buy themselves some time or whatever. But I think the biggest thing here is, you know, the level of the person you're dealing with, I'm going to, be transparent here. You and I have been having some discussions, and you realize that it's my CEO that's going to make the final decision. But to get that final decision maker in front of you is a toughie. And, good job being persistent there.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Ben. I liked how you try to justify, hey, I don't want that proposal going to the CEO because all he's going to see is the cost. If you continue to build a relationship with the CRO, then you can hand walk that in. Any objections that the CEO might have, you'll be able to address face to face and be able to say, this is the business case for this. Here's your ROI. Here's where we see Brevity connecting and break even to profitability. What does that mean to you, CEO? And that takes tariffs and everything else off the table.
Great feedback.
I have a question. Because tariffs, it is coming up. I've only gotten one so far, but for those of you who it is coming up for, like, how are you guys going about it?
Well, I'm in industrial distribution, so if I got paid a commission on every tariff letter we got from our vendors, I'd be as rich as Brian. we get these daily, and it's just a new administration breaking everything in the first 100 days, trying to get enough people to the table. I think, in public and in recorded conversations, Trump has said, I just want to get you guys to the table. I'm throwing this out there like the art of the deal. This is the book I wrote just to get you to the table. But from a real standpoint, we're seeing in industrial distribution, end users are hitting pause on capital expenditures because this is a crazy roller coaster. And they're like, look, we're just going to defer for 6, 8, 12 more months until we figure out what this chaos results in. So it hurts us is what it does, because I don't get paid when people say, I'm going to put a pause on this.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, it doesn't sound like there's, I mean, that's a tough one. That sounds like it would be a tough one.
Yeah, it's a great question, Ben. If you don't mind, go ahead and share those slides. We'll get into the rest of the content. But Kurt, yeah, my view on this is just how I've been responding, or how I think about it, is it's things that are out of our control. The government, politics, tariffs, a lot of it's out of our control. So I try to focus on things that I can control, and I try to relay that when I'm speaking with customers. Easier said than done. And my experience around any challenging times, whether it was like 08 or beginning of COVID, a lot of companies that I found investing more during those times were breaking out on the other side stronger and surpassing their competition. So, I mean, I try to speak to that high level if I can, and it resonates with some, maybe not with others, but I try to put it back in that lens, and that's been helpful for me, at least to deter it out of the gates and keep the conversation going. So.
Great feedback. Thank you, Dustin.
Awesome. All right, we'll get into the content here. We just got a few slides, and again, want it to be interactive. Then you can go ahead into slide 3, I believe, and get going. So going back to the original part before Ben did the role play, how do you win the business sale to prevent no decision? So just a quick definition for y'all. What is the business sale, right? So let's just go a little bit deeper into that. The justification or the business reasons for bringing in a new product or service. The business folks may or may not understand what the product actually does. Failing to distinguish between the business and the technical sale is an overlooked mistake that sales teams commonly run into. So as far as what does it sound like? It could be questions, or it could just be some of the things that Ben was up against a few minutes ago. So questions like, what value does your company bring to the table outside of just the product? What value are you bringing to the table? The one Brian mentioned, I'm the main decision maker. You don't need to speak to anyone else. I would say that could be a red flag potentially. I'm not sure if this is solving a real problem for us. I mean, that comes up pretty often, where are you really solving something short term that's going to drive some urgency? If you're not, the business people are probably going to push you off. And then we have a committee that makes decisions on new products. So some industries have a committee to get ready for another one, and that can be confusing for salespeople to navigate that. Brian, what else have you seen as far as what this might sound like when you're trying to see, hey, am I in the business sale? What's a red flag comment, and anything else that comes to mind for you?
Well, I sold mostly to technical people, and they just assumed that the company would buy them whatever they needed to get their project done. And you very quickly learn that they will not buy anything. You get to the manager and they go, isn't there something free? Don't we have something already that does this? So that's usually the first problem you run into. So then that's why you need to get them involved. And then as you go up the org, depending on how much your product costs, determines how complex that business sale will be, because it may not just be their boss, it may be the CEO. And a lot of reps make the mistake of thinking it's a CFO. And all of a sudden they're selling to the wrong department. So this is really critical that your reps understand the business sale and get comfortable asking some of these questions. The how isn't that hard. It's really the how well you did it. Because Ben didn't practice this before he did it in front of the crowd, did he? No, once. First score wasn't 83, was it?
No, I definitely practiced.
That's great. And then the impact of not mastering and practicing this, number one is inaccurate pipeline. That's going to happen downstream, whether the salespeople realize it or not. If they haven't been having these business conversations or multi-threading on the business side, it's probably going to cause a deal to stall, which causes a lot of pain for the managers and the leadership. I can tell you I've had many examples in the past myself where I overestimated what a deal was worth, put it in the A pipeline, and didn't realize how hard the business sale part was going to be, and it made me not look that good under the spotlight. And that's not a good place to be, and it causes a chain reaction within the organization when that happens. Second thing is losing to the status quo. For sure, if you're not driving the urgency, if it's not a priority, if it's not solving a real business problem, and you're having these type of conversations, you're most likely just going to lose to the incumbent or status quo, which is the one that's most common for us to lose to. And then I think this too, we get comfortable on the technical side. We're going to talk about this on the next slide. Is a lot of salespeople might feel comfortable talking about the product, the features, the benefits, but so then they end up being single threaded with the technical folks only. And the further and further you get down that path, the harder it is to get out of it. So how can you embrace that earlier is a big thing that we see as well. And let me ask the question to the audience as well is, do you think your teams are comfortable talking to the business contacts and asking some of these tough questions, or what's your view of how your teams are navigating this? Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah, I can add to that. So obviously coming from ABB, we are very technical salespeople, and probably not many salespeople, mostly engineers trying to sell stuff, and engineers trying to sell it to engineers on the other side of the table. So super comfortable with getting stuck talking about technical fantasies, right? Oh, and it's wonderful. Okay, and it's so comfortable. And then, I mean, we got deals stuck for 8 years. Like, what the hell's going on? Like, how's this possible? And then you can just get it. Once you get it, this engineer is not able to motivate the CapEx. So, hey, I need to be with you at that CapEx motivation meeting, and I need to help you sell it. And I need to throw all that technical gump out. It's good for you, Mr. Engineer. I'm going to feed you this stuff. You're going to be a champion on the technical. But why is it relevant to the business? You know, can they afford to wait? Can they endure this risk? Do they understand what's at stake if the operations stop? But we think our technical counterpart to the customer is good at sales. No, they're not. They don't know how to sell it upstairs. And when they get to trust us, then, hey, I'm going to be your buddy. I'm going to be your best friend at your CapEx board meeting. I'll quietly support, and I'll have a 15-minute pitch to make sure I get this going through. And if I can talk to someone else, that's great. But we have so many no decision issues because we get comfortable talking to the wrong people. Sounds terrible, doesn't it?
Well, it's hard too, because talking about the product is fun. It's easy. It's what you know. Business, they don't know it, and you're not comfortable with it. So it's like, talking to your kids, right? Okay. Go watch TV.
Yeah.
Thanks, Martin, and totally get where you're coming from there. Go ahead, Craig. I think you were raising your hand.
Yeah, I was, same thing. I think it's really easy for account managers to identify what they think the business pain is. So putting it on a slide sounds really good. I think where the struggle and challenge often is to actually have that business conversation and be able to handle objections from it, particularly from an executive. And to Martin's point, often we have to supplement other executives or people from the line of sales or business side into those meetings to have it because they're not comfortable, or they can't make the on the fly adjustments because they don't have the practice.
And just think about you going to not your manager, but your manager's manager trying to get something bought for 50 or 100K.
Right.
And they say no. What do? Do you fight?
Personally, I fight, but
Takes guts.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Ben, you can go ahead to the next slide, and then appreciate the feedback there, guys. And yeah, you want to make your champion or champions look good, so you need to work with them to build this business case. Try to anticipate what are the objections that the C-suite or whoever might be adding into it, and sort of partner together, because you want them to look good. You want this to be successful, whatever initiative you're doing. And there's going to be naysayers. There's going to be people pushing back. There's going to be people asking tough questions. So how can you equip them the best way? Because a lot of times we want to be in those conversations. And of course, Ben was trying to, but it's just not always the reality. So you have to make sure that your champion feels confident and that they're going to push back when they need to. So. All right, so we got about 15 minutes left, so right on track with timing. So these are just suggestions, takeaways of how you can encourage your teams and some new strategies to try to pursue these next couple weeks. So first one is embracing the tough questions. Brian, I probably learned so many great questions from Brian over the years. We put a few of them on the slide here, but it's, you need to ask the questions, but it's doing it when you're supposed to, and then having those written down or practice beforehand. I think we all believe that we need to have 20 questions prepared for a lot of meetings, but that just sounds robotic and it's not realistic. It's better to have 3 or 5 really powerful questions that get people talking, because you want them to be talking way more than you. And that's really the goal with these tougher questions. It also builds respect, right? If you want to be more of a peer, not a salesperson, you need to be asking the tough questions. You need to understand the business impact. So just a few examples here. On our side, we run up with a lot of AIs taking over the world, and a lot of people want to see what's out there. So, hey, are you just looking for entertainment or a new AI tool, or are you trying to solve a real sales problem? It's pretty direct, but it gets people thinking of what is the purpose of what they're trying to do. Next one is just this phrase, if you're serious. We like to use that a lot. If you're serious, we should get an executive sponsor before we start the pilot. And then you get an acid test of how serious are they, or maybe you've done a poor job of showing the ROI so far, and you have more of a real conversation. Ben was doing a good job of this on the role play. What do you think the CEO will say? You basically just insert whatever title you need to there, CRO, VP, director, but what do you think they'll say? What is their point of view? And then where's this on the priority list? Because especially right now with whatever's going on, there's gonna be more and more excuses. So if it's not in that top 5 priority list, then it's likely not gonna happen this year or maybe ever. So how do you get it higher up on the priority list and having a real conversation? But I'd love to hear from the audience. You can put it in the chat as well. Does anybody have any go-to questions, like tough questions they ask during the deal cycle to try to get to that next stage or get the real picture of what's going on?
Yeah, I got something a little different, but something we're doing at Brevity right now is creating or refining our call checklist. So we have like a pre-call checklist, an intra-call checklist, a post-call checklist, which is, great. But I think what's even more valuable is doing like, what's going to happen? Like, how can we prevent getting into these traps? So they're not going to want to set up the CEO meeting. They're going to just ask you all technical questions. So I think that's a really valuable exercise to do before each call. Like, what's going to go wrong on this call? And just to make sure you have a question like the ones Dustin went through, that like in the hopper, ready to go.
Looks like Kurt chimed in here. What if you did not do anything here? How will that change the challenge you said that you were having? So essentially the cost of doing nothing, getting them thinking about that, turning it from latent to more active pain. That's a great idea. Like that. Anybody else in the chat or from the audience? Brian, I know you have a ton, but let's see if anybody else chimes in first. Go ahead, Greg. think you may be on mute.
Not used to your Google Meet, sorry. So I always, because we all have goals. We all work for corporations. You all got these personal development goals that you have as an individual. So how can you tie this sale to their personal goals? Can I help you be successful? Can I help you meet what you set out to do over the next year? Can this activity or this purchase help you achieve what you need? And framing it around that can then help them become more of a champion or a sponsor to what you're trying to do. Yeah, my 2 cents.
That's spot on. It's like a personal win for your champion. Are you gonna, make them look good, help them get promoted, help them get to the next stage in their career, a new project that puts them in a positive light over the rest of the C-suite? That's phenomenal. People forget about that. You get so sucked into all the things we have to do for the sale and all these different things we're going through that we forget about that human to human interaction and how we're actually helping the person.
We're all people.
Yeah.
In the end of the day, we're just people. And we're here to do a job. We're here to sell stuff. They need to buy stuff. They need to run their business. How do I make you look good? Which in turn helps me look good. So.
Appreciate that, Greg. All right, we'll keep moving on. The second point is starting the business sale early. So Brian, I know this comes up a lot with the courses you teach and over the years. Can you explain what you mean by that? Is like trying to get the business sale started earlier than later?
Right. Right. Because we're pretty good at selling the end user, getting the end user excited about the product, like what Martin talked about: features, functions, speeds, feeds, how it's better than the alternatives. That's the technical sale. Now, the business has to have a business need. They have to have a rationalization, a justification for spending the money to get the product. And it's usually not the money. It's the hassle to get the money, the administrative, the legal, the minutia of getting it done, the political capital to get it done. And as salespeople, we get so comfortable with our champion, but that champion has zero selling experience typically. So why not kind of like trial close them with like, what does your manager think about this? Because if the manager's not bought in, their manager's not going to be bought in. Are they aware of this problem? What's their opinion? What do they see as the alternatives? What's the urgency? Can we connect it to something that they do care about? And it's that business sale that reps just assume happens, but it doesn't just happen. If you don't drive it, you have two people who assume it's going to happen, because the user buyer takes your quote and forwards it, sometimes with no explanation. And they expect somebody to now procure this. And this is why it takes so long. And as reps, we need to control that, or at least influence it. Otherwise, we forecast it and it doesn't close. Not that it's not a real deal, or could be a real deal. It's just not understood where it is in the process.
And what I like to do is I start multi-threading at the very beginning. So the second I think it's a legitimate opportunity, I'll start adding some of the business folks on LinkedIn, just so there's some type of rapport there. And that's a great way to at least get people known who you are earlier in the process. Because the longer you're with that just a technical person, the harder it is to meet the business people. A few other ideas on that note is it's this idea of imposter syndrome. I think a lot of salespeople, they don't feel like they're talking peer to peer, so they don't have the conversations. But maybe you get your boss to have that conversation. Maybe you just embrace it, because if you want to keep doing well in sales, you need to embrace that. Ben did a great job today on the role play. I'm sure it was uncomfortable to do a role play in front of 40 people, but he crushed it and did a good job. So it's, you want to be in those uncomfortable situations. You want to keep pushing yourself. So pushing that with your team, I think, is important. Making sure you're negotiating with the right person. I think a couple folks mentioned that earlier, but a lot of times they're negotiating with the technical person, giving stuff away, and then they have nothing for the business side. So you need to make sure you're very aware of that as a sales team and leader. some ideas to engage the business folks. It could be maybe new products you're working on, getting them involved with that, home office visits, joint efforts. The webinar we're doing today, this is an idea of something like that. So how can you be creative? You need to be more creative with the business side to get them engaged, especially if it's bigger deal sizes. And then someone mentioned this earlier too about the ROI. There's right now a lot of ROIs are thrown out there, but I don't think a lot of them are actually believed. So you really need to get deeper with your champions to make sure it's a believable ROI when it does get in front of the higher up folks, and something that's very relevant to that company. And it's gonna be hard either way. So why not try to prevent some of this? Why not prepare on the front end and practice these tougher business conversations? Because if you don't, and that deal stalls and you don't get any commission or no revenue for the company, that's hard too. So it's almost like, which one is better for you long term? And we think preparing and practicing these tougher conversations on the business side is way better in the long run. And last thing here, we got about 5 minutes. So focus on deals that are likely to close. Seems pretty simple in theory, but it's hard to execute. I did a time audit a few years ago of a full year, and it was painful for me to admit and realize this, but about 40% of the meetings and time I spent throughout that year were on deals that didn't close. And I think it equated to about 550 or 600 hours. And I had to be real with myself about, why didn't they close? Why was I still spending so much time on them? And it was painful to admit that to myself. So you don't have to do a full year, but even just looking at the past quarter, and maybe for yourself or your team, where was the time being spent? Was it deals that got to the finish line or looked promising, or is it on deals that never closed? And that goes into this paradox that we have as salespeople, is you have to be confident to present, to get a deal closed, all that, but you need to be paranoid on the deal side. It's not negative, it's just you need to beat up the deals a little bit more, be a little more paranoid, and it's hard to balance that. So a lot of times I think we get overconfident with the deals and we think we can be Superman and close everything, but that's causing us to focus on deals that never close, which is a vicious cycle for everybody. And Brian, I'll let you speak to this. A great way to also look at this is perhaps looking at the closed won or closed lost, and what are the common traits from those? Is that something that you think is pretty effective for teams to do, or salespeople?
Yeah, it's pattern matching, because that's really, as a leader, that's our value, is you get the largest vantage point of deals. What is the pattern of the deals that close versus the deals that stall? Because this isn't really, is it a deal or not? It's how do you get the deal done within a reasonable amount of time? Do you want to do it over 18 months or 9? And the difference, the technical people want it, but they don't know how to get it done. So your reps, the reason they're not doing it is they're not comfortable doing it, or they probably think they are doing it, but it's not really doing it. And this is the power of practice. Is the how is pretty easy. It's the feeling comfortable doing it.
Great, Ben, you can go ahead and stop sharing the slides, and we got a few minutes here for any additional Q&A, but hopefully that was impactful today. Any closing thoughts from anyone, or what are some other topics that you'd like to see in the future? We're trying to dial in our next few months, and we want to be as relevant as possible, but any closing thoughts from the group or ideas for the future of things that we could focus on that are very relevant to you?
Hey, Dustin, this is Mike. I just want to say this topic is great for me. My sales team is all clinical type people that just go in and sell the clinical folks, and it's really hard for them to see the business sales. So I've been trying to hammer it into them for a long time, but it's hard to get it to stick. Brian, I give them your website. You can lead a horse to water. Right? But a horse that thinks they know how to sell is hard to lead to water.
You want to be right or you want to be rich?
I like that. I'm not part of that.
It's expensive to be right.
Exactly. So yeah, anyway, thanks for this. When we get to work together again, Dustin, I want to do this topic.
Sounds good. Well, I
in-
appreciate that.
If I could just add in,
Yeah, go ahead, Jerry. Yep.
dovetail on what Michael said there. My people are not technical. We hire them specifically just to be professional salespeople. And it is still a very challenging and very necessary skill to develop. It's technical people don't have a corner on the problem with this. It's asking the right questions at the right time and allowing yourself the chutzpah to know that it's okay to ask about these things. So this is very important. These are very important discussions.
And they know they should. They know how.
They do.
And they remember right after the meeting's over.
Yeah.
That's what I should have done.
But typically people are going to gravitate to their comfort zone.
Always.
And so that's what you have to battle against. And this is a great technique. If you design your conversations accordingly to replicate circumstances that people are seeing out there in the field, and allowing them to drill that without having to deal with their peers breathing down their neck and staring at them. So.
Well said, Jerry. Thanks for chiming in. Good to see you as well. And Kurt said in the chat, future topic, sales autopsy. Why, how, when did we lose the deal? What did we learn? So sort of the theme that we talked about here the last few minutes on that. Thank you for sharing that, Kurt. Anything else from the group? Go ahead.
Yeah,
Martin.
maybe two final things. Start the business sale early. You need to make it big and bold and massive. We tend to start the business sale. Oh, this is a real deal. Maybe we should do some of that selling too. And that's probably too late. And then we have to undo problems that we've created. So yeah, starting early is a key thing. And Dustin, I mentioned the one person I pulled into my team. We hired a new person, totally non-sales, more very product, and serious imposter syndrome, right? Massive. And a lot of the role play practice, I mean, she's done like 42 role plays. Like she's really, really done it. And she is super confident now. She's like, no problem. I'll talk to anybody. And she does. And she's like that duck in the swimming upstream, right? Super confident in the meeting. It's going so well. And she says, I'm like shaking and sweating underneath. I'm like, yes, but it went so well. It was awesome. It was brilliant. So yeah, thanks. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate that. No, that imposter syndrome is real. But you know, the more you prepare, the more you practice, the more you can typically thrive in those environments. But I appreciate you sharing that because yeah, she's been crushing it. She's done 42. That's a massive amount. So good for her. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate you. If you have any other questions, follow up, let us know. We'll send out an email recap next week with some of the highlights as well as the presentation so you guys can use it as you please. And we'll keep you guys posted on the upcoming topics for the future. And we'll continue to get better with the webinars. We'll probably be switching to a different platform soon to make it more streamlined so you're not getting emails from me and all that. And we appreciate all the support and looking forward to seeing everyone next month.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See ya.
Cheers. Bye-bye.